Hi, welcome to this one. This is the last section of ISO 9001, Section 8. It deals with measurement, analysis, and improvement. Now, this part probably causes a certain amount of trouble for organizations. When ISO 9001 first came out, in many ways, this section was missing. With, I think it was the 2000 version of 9001, there came the requirement for continual improvement. Now, that wasn't an obligation to improve all the time. It was merely to consider what improvements could be made and to implement those that could be done. So it just get better. Don't leave your production processes just as bad as they always were. Now, when we're talking about measurement, analysis, and improvement, what are we talking about? Well, there are some things that need to be monitored, not only monitored but measured in some reasonably objective fashion. Now, the first of these is customer satisfaction. Sorry, no ifs, no buts, no escape. You must measure customer satisfaction, and you produce that. Now, there isn't any requirement to use a specific method. You could, for example, assess or determine your customer satisfaction based on phone calls to the customers or something of that nature. Or you could do a full survey or have some kind of a concrete measure. Whatever way you do it, doesn't matter. There just has to be some measure of customer satisfaction that feeds into the workings of the quality management system. Another part is the internal audit. There must be an internal audit of the workings of the quality management system. So there has to be some internal determination. Is this thing working? Is the quality management system working? Is it doing what it's supposed to do? Now that, there's no particular requirements or restrictions on that, simply that you must do it. There must be some monitoring and measurement of the processes. So your design and development processes, your measurement processes, your monitoring processes, your purchasing processes, and even the processes that are particular to the quality management system. There must be some monitoring and measurement of those. Not necessarily all of them, just some of them at least. If you were genuine about quality management, you would determine which processes mattered more to the quality of your goods and services, and you'd monitor those. But I guess if you're trying to get your certificate to put on the foyer, the front of the office, and escape most of the obligations, you'll find something that you can measure. I don't know. It's probably better, easier, just to do the whole thing properly. And you must monitor and measure your product. Now, your product might be a service. That's cool. You've still got to monitor it and measure it. The whole idea is that you've got this quality management system that's supposed to be affecting what you do and how you do it, what you produce and how you produce it, and whether it's any good. Well, how are you going to tell? How will you know? With the monitoring and measurement, you can tell and you can know, and this is what's required, that you do monitor it, you do measure it, you do record that, you do actually look at it, you determine whether all this overhang of quality management is actually working. So that's what's required. And within this Section 8, there is a requirement to control non-conforming product. Okay, so you've monitored your processes, you find a fault in the process that's producing bad outcome, and that's affecting the product. Whether that product is an intermediate product or the final product doesn't matter. If it's defective, you have to control it. The reason being, you don't want defective components or sub-assemblies going into a perfectly good product. Right? That doesn't make any sense. So how are you going to either fix it before it's included, or put it back in the scrap heap and fix it later if you're going to fix it, or just to destroy it? Similarly, the control of the non-conforming product when the final product is built, particularly in, say, electronics equipment, you're obliged to test that before you send it out. Now, if you find one that fails the test, obviously you want to isolate it from the good equipment, because how are you going to tell otherwise? I mean, they all look the same. So this is the requirement of this particular clause. There is a requirement to analyze the data. There's no particular specifications on how you analyze the data. It's kind of left up to you, because obviously you've got different forms of data in different circumstances. But you've got all this information. What are you going to do with the information? What does it all mean? What does it tell you about a quality management system? So you do some analysis. Even looking at the customer satisfaction will tell you something. So you are obliged to do some analysis of the data. Now we come to improvement. Now, improvement is quite a sizable industry, and possibly because the things that you potentially can do to quality management systems, particularly in the early stages when there are probably so many problems and so many faults, in the case of where do you start? There are some approaches that seem to work better than others. There are some approaches that will give some advice on which problems to go after first, and which problems just leave alone because you'll get to them later. Now, I deal with those in another topic, another lecture. ISO 9001 doesn't particularly concern itself about what approach you do or don't use, merely that you do try to improve. It does identify two types of improvements to do with faults. Now, one is corrective action. So having discovered a fault, you should have some way to correct that, preferably in the quality management system. So the whole idea is that you don't just simply find a fault and just get rid of the fault. You're obliged to go and say, well, why did that fault occur? Is there something in the design and development processes that allowed that fault to occur? How can we try to eliminate that particular cause of that fault? That's corrective action. Preventative action is simply having a look at the kind of thing that might go wrong, and changing the quality management system or the processes within the quality management system to prevent it going wrong. You might think that's a little bit like some theoretical exercise somewhere. You think, well, what are we going to do with that? Well, this is probably more important when you're building a new product, or you're introducing some new infrastructure, or entering a new market, or there's some change in the regulatory environment or the customer requirement, where you really don't have time to go and put out a few faulty products, possibly cause a major accident, before you conclude, oh, gee, we shouldn't have done that. So this preventative action, there's some obligation to go and have a look at what kind of thing might happen that we might prevent, and how would we alter the quality management system so that we might prevent this in future. So that's the intention of the section on improvement. So that's section 8 of ISO 9001. It deals with measurement, analysis, and improvement. It includes measurement of customer satisfaction, monitoring and controlling the production processes, the analysis of the data that you get out of all that, and the actions you can take for improvement.